Hello and welcome to Meet the Red Cross. I'm Dave Griffith, the Executive Director of the Heart of Missouri Chapter, and with me on the show today I have two guests. Our first guest is Ralph Robinett, who is a board member and a longtime volunteer for the American Red Cross. And we're going to take a break, and then on the second half of the show, I have another volunteer, Karen Libbert, who's been a volunteer for a long time and is actually our volunteer coordinator for our community chapter. So glad to have both of them on the show today. And Ralph, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. It's always a pleasure to be available to talk about my favorite subject, the Red Cross.
All right. Well, I want to talk about the Red Cross a little bit. Obviously, that's why we're here, but I also want to talk about your background. And you're a retired highway patrolman. You might tell us about that and how that retirement has been working for you.
I spent over 33 years in the highway patrol, and retirement has worked out great for me, but I'm almost a professional volunteer. So I stay very busy in retirement. It's busier than I thought I would be.
Well, Ralph not only is a volunteer for the American Red Cross, but he's also the chairman of the Planning and Zoning Committee for the city of Jefferson. And so the work that you do inside of our community, Ralph, is much appreciated. But I do want to talk about your involvement with the Red Cross. And my understanding is you've been volunteering and been a part of us since the early 1970s.
Yes, I've been a part of this Red Cross board since the 1970s.
And really, what got you involved?
My first exposure to the Red Cross was in 1968 when I was working the Kansas City riots. And there I am, a young trooper, and we're out in the downtown Kansas City working the night shift from dark to daylight. Everything is closed, but out there with us every hour was the American Red Cross. They were out there serving us sandwiches, drinks, coffee, soda, had little treats for us. They were always there to make sure we got fed and had a few comforts and life in the middle of the night in downtown Kansas City. When I came to Jefferson City then, I met a couple here who were very active in the Red Cross. And they were in our church, and I spoke to them and said, I'd like to be involved in the Red Cross someday. It was the Turners. They were very involved in the Red Cross chapter. They said, well, why don't you go with us to a board meeting and see what you think about it? And perhaps you'd like to serve on the board. And that's how I got on the board of the American Red Cross here in the 70s.
What is, and over the years, of course, there's the board of directors and the bylaws that we have in the board of being the board of directors. There's some time when you, a certain amount of time you spend on the board, and then you roll off and you can come back on. How many times has that happened to you, Ralph? It's
happened several times to me, Dave. I've maxed out, and then they were always gracious enough to ask me back on the board, and I'm always honored and privileged to be able to do that.
Well, we're honored to have you on the board and to keep good people like yourselves, and the vast amount of experience that you have and history that you have with us is valuable to me as an executive director, and it's valuable to our board of directors as well to give us that kind of perspective. But how have you seen the board change over that period of time since you first got on the board and until what it's morphed into today?
Over the years, the whole structure of the Red Cross has changed. When I first came here, we really were a board that kind of ran our own destiny here. We had the board of directors, executive director. We were kind of responsible for making sure we carried out the mission of the Red Cross. Over the years, that has transitioned where we're getting more and more guidance from the top down. That's certainly better guidance. We certainly need that. It brings about uniformity in the Red Cross. But that's how I've seen it change, is maybe our administration has come from the top down, which has been a good thing. It's certainly improved the efficiency of our chapter in the Red Cross. Our mission has not changed. We're still here to help the people in our community and be the safety net when the people need us the most. When help has to be there, the Red Cross is always there to help those people who are unfortunately victims of man-made or natural disasters.
Yeah. One of the roles inside the board of directors, there are a number of different committees that we have, and there's an executive committee as well. And one of the roles that you've had for some time now has been the chairman of the nominating committee. And you might just walk us through and tell us about the nominating committee, why you feel like that's an important part of the Red Cross, and how you look at people when we get ready to bring somebody on as a board member, what your role is involved in that.
In any nonprofit, the volunteer board is one of the most important assets that they have to be there to support the mission of that organization. I look for people that want to help, who are committed to helping others, who are willing to serve. Red Cross is an active board, so when I talk to people about serving, I make sure they understand we expect them to be involved in the board, we expect them to be involved in the Red Cross, be active on the committee, to be a supporter of the Red Cross out in the community for us, to be a role model for the Red Cross. And that's what I look for, people who are willing to serve, commit to the Red Cross and the requirements we have as board members, that you do become involved and you stay involved and support our mission.
You mentioned that we talked about the different committees that are on there. The nominating committee is a key committee that we have on the board of directors. Is that something that you've just done by yourself? Is it something you were assigned to, or is it something you volunteered for?
It's something that probably naturally fell my way. I volunteered for it, and over the years I've been very happy of the quality of people that I've been able to get to come on the board. Now, I'm certainly not the only person that does that. Our executive director, our executive officers, other members of the board, you know, we constantly are asking them, do they know of some good person they would recommend for the board? So some of our best board members come from other board members and our volunteers. We've had several people have come to volunteer on the Red Cross. As they become more active and involved, they wanted to know if they could serve on the board, and we have several of our people previously were volunteers that are now board members.
Those board members that we have are made up of a number of business leaders that we have inside the community, and one of the things that's really changed here recently, and that is with the expansion of our community chapter and now encompassing 21 counties, we've actually been able to engage people from outside the city of Jefferson to be involved in that. How do you see that working with the board, and what are your thoughts on that?
Oh, I think that's excellent, and even today, we now have board members from Marshall, from Columbia, from Audrain, Montgomery County area, from the Raleigh area, so Fulton area. We have board members now from all over our 21 county area. We're constantly looking for people out in our service area who would like to come and be board members and commit to serve on our board, because we help all of those communities. We're a part of all those communities.
It's good to have that perspective of what's going on within their community, and one of the things that in being a community chapter and a board of directors, and really only having one board of directors that's surrounded by a number of leadership councils, it gives those leadership councils some voice there at the table with the board of directors, but I think it also keeps us really as a transparent chapter of letting them know what services are available, what services are needed, and how they can be involved. How do you see this new perspective, this new chapter model being effective in those 21 counties?
We already are starting to see some of the effectiveness of it from our new executive director who's just come on board. He's got a lot of energy. We're out there working real hard out in the field. He's not a sit behind the desk type guy. We have an outstanding communication director who really gets the word out there. So between the executive director, the communications director, board members, we're really getting the word out there on the Red Cross, getting our people involved, letting the community know when we have an emergency in their area that the Red Cross has been there to help, and how they can help the Red Cross to do our job even a little bit better to serve their citizens when an emergency occurs.
Well, one of the things that happened at our last board meeting was that you received an award. And the chairman of the board of directors, he and I were visiting, and we felt like that there are a number of volunteers that we have and a lot of board members that we have that really set themselves apart. And Ralph, you are one of those. And so we came up with the Ralph Robinett Excellence Award, and it was awarded to you at the last board meeting. Did that come as a surprise to you?
It came as a total surprise, and I'm very humble. There's so many out there that are so much more deserving than I am. I just love the Red Cross. It's something I enjoy doing, and the award is not for me, it's for them, and I humbly accepted it for them, but thank you. It's a tremendous honor to have that type of recognition within an organization that I am so committed to.
Well, we can never thank our volunteers enough, and by being on the board of directors, you're also a volunteer, but the leadership that we have, that we need within our community chapter, is one that we rely upon people like you. We've determined that this particular award is not going to be given out each year, but it's going to be given when it's appropriate. And I just want to thank you for being the leader that you have been for us and continue to be for us in the coming years. But I'd like for you to share with us, you shared with us a story about what happened in 1968. Are there any Red Cross stories that, in ways that the Red Cross has impacted your life, or the way that you have seen the Red Cross impact the lives of many others inside of our community and inside of our community chapter?
One of the biggest natural disasters we had in Jefferson City was in 1993 in the famous flood. And the Red Cross was out there 24/7. We had all of our volunteers working. Volunteers came from all over the country to help our community. And I was so proud of the Red Cross for what they had did through that flood, that major flood. That is in our local community. And then just most recently, the terrible tornado they had in Joplin last year, it was just absolutely amazing how this city of Jefferson City and the community responded to come forward to donate whatever they could to Joplin. All of our volunteers wanting to go to Joplin to help. So that's what's really heartwarming for me. When the need is there, the Red Cross is there, and the community is there to help us. Without the community and their support, we couldn't get the job done. I know our staff and volunteers do a tremendous job, but we are community, and the community is there for us when we need them.
I think that's a good message, and I think one of the things that we've been able to find out, and it's unfortunate that really about the only time that you hear the Red Cross talked about is if there is a natural disaster or we're on television. But the point that you bring up is one that the message we try and get out every day, and that is that there are lives that are being impacted every day by the Red Cross, people whose homes are being destroyed, and how our volunteers and people like yourself that help us to help those people on the worst day of their life. And so
well, just this week we had another example at 2:30 or 3 o'clock in the morning. We had a fire here in Jefferson City where a family got displaced. While the fire department is there and the news media, they're putting out the fire, I look up and there's our executive director and the Red Cross volunteers already on the scene to help those people. That safety net was there to help them get back on the road of recovery. And that's what the Red Cross is about. When you need them, they'll be there to help you.
That's right. Well, Ralph, we sure appreciate you and appreciate all that you've done for us, and I'm honored to be able to serve along with you in helping the people of our community. And I appreciate you being here.
Thank you so much. It's a labor of love for me. I appreciate the opportunity to serve.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
We're going to take a short break and we'll be right back.
Mm-hmm. 2 o'clock. Okay.
Your employees who serve in the National Guard and Reserve may seem different. They may work a little harder, be more confident, more willing to make the extra effort to get the job done right. So when your employees need time off to serve, remember, it's not just good for our country, it's good for your business.
Glad you could all make it.
Wow, great job, guys.
Thanks, Mr. Gordon.
Believe me, you'll be in a lot of races in your life. But don't miss this one. Join me, Jeff Gordon, in the Race to Cub Scouting. It's fun at every turn.
Fun at Cub Scout. Fun at every turn. Racing cars and million stars. Gotta be some fun at every turn, yeah.
Hey, you missed a spot.
Welcome back to Meet the Red Cross. Joining me now is one of our really dedicated and seasoned volunteers, and it's Karen Libbert. And Karen, thank you for being here with us today.
Thank you for inviting me.
I'd like for you, first off, just to tell us a little bit of history about how long you've been a volunteer for the Red Cross and really what brought you here.
Well, I started with the Red Cross in September of '03, and I knew in a couple years I was going to retire, and I just, what's out there to do? And I just was so anxious to get into helping people. I worked for SEMA, the State Emergency Management Agency, as an accountant, but got involved with their drills and stuff for the Callaway plant and stuff, and it was just an excitement whenever that was all going on. And it just kind of stayed in me. So in September of '03, I filled out my application and just started taking classes. And didn't get too involved at that time because I was working full time, and but took as many classes as I could, and then was able to retire in June of '05. So after that, I just kept taking classes, but then in August, Katrina hit, and I was sent there and hit the ground running. It just jumped in with both feet, scared to death. Mm-hmm. But it was fantastic. It was a great experience.
I do want to talk about Katrina and your experience there, but recently you were named as our chapter volunteer coordinator. Yeah. And Ralph and I were talking, I think, a little earlier today, and saying that, you know, I think a lot of times when you retire, you end up being more busy than you were when you had a full-time job. But what is your role as a volunteer coordinator? What do you see that as, and how can those that are watching this show today, how can they become involved?
Well, they can become involved either by coming by the office or calling by phone, or you see us out in many different events in the community throughout our 21 counties, and you can go up to them and say, gosh, you know, I'd like to know more about being a volunteer. And we will be glad to put your name and phone number, email address, whatever you have, and then it'll come back to the office, and then they give it to me, and I will contact them either by phone or by email, tell them about us, tell them about we're 21 counties big, tell them about our mission, tell them about what our values are, what do we stand behind, and how do we operate, and stuff such as that. I will also then, you know, give them an application packet to fill out and make sure all of that's done well, or, you know, done correctly. And then we talk about expectations, and we do have expectations of our volunteers. We'd like for you to stay engaged, go to the monthly meetings as much as you can. We know you have a life beyond this too, but, you know, just to try to stay engaged. We have training. There's 4 trainings that we want everyone to take, and they're really the basic trainings of the first one's like an overview class and just tells about all the beginning and all of us. Next one is sheltering. The next one's disaster assessments, and then next one is client casework. And all of those trainings, they're mandatory, but they're very, very good trainings, and they are also classes way beyond that. But we want our beginning volunteers to take those just as soon as they can. And then, so I kind of just try to keep them engaged, try to keep them, you know, up on the classes, what's coming up. Do you have, you know, any questions, of course, if they want to go higher, if they want to be a supervisor, if they want to, how do they do that? A lot of people like to deploy nationally. We've had several of them that, you know, several of those occurrences that they can do that and help them through that process and stuff. So it's very exciting. I like to keep people excited about how to volunteer and what's the next steps.
There's a new tool that the Red Cross has just rolled out here just very recently called the Volunteer Connection. Mm. Explain to us what the Volunteer Connection is and how that tool really is useful for you as a volunteer coordinator.
Oh, it's going to be so great. It's going to be a tool that everything is going to be in one place. And you as a volunteer will be able to check your profile, to update your profiles, to see of all the trainings you've had. It will be where everything, like if you took the sheltering class, for instance, and there will be a place in there where the whole group of our chapter, who all has taken sheltering, who all has, you know, done this activity is what it is, or a job in the Red Cross. And then it will give you updates on sheltering policies and procedures that might have changed, and that team then will be sent these updates, and all of that is going to be in this Volunteer Connection. excuse me, beyond just updates of any trainings that are coming up, any advanced trainings or any other trainings that would help in all the different activities that we have. And then you can sign up online, and then it will give you reminders. And that's, you know, like sign up for a training, and then, you know, a little ways before it hits, then it will remind you, which we all need that in this day and time of reminders and stuff. So I am very anxious to get trained in the Volunteer Connection and to get it implemented.
Well, I think one of the tools that the Volunteer Connection is really going to do for the Red Cross as a whole organization is being able to have a master list, if you will, or to have a database of those that are most qualified.
Yes.
And how we can mobilize them when and if we do have a disaster, and that tool, and having someone like yourself that's had that experience with SEMA and knowing the importance of it is a true asset to our chapter.
It is. When times of disaster, when it hits, you have not much time to think except for what you want to do, what you need to do, and you're hitting the ground running. And you know, you need that list. You need to who was trained in what you need right up front, and then that's what you need. You need to call them and get them engaged and stuff. So it's going to be very valuable.
Now we have volunteer meetings. Those volunteer meetings are once a month.
Yes.
And I know that they happen right around the corner from my office, and I can tell you that they cook every time because I can. There's good smelling food that's coming from that training room. But tell us about those trainings, those volunteer training meetings that we have, and really what are those about, and how do we help volunteers there?
Well, as far as the monthly meetings, we have them just to what's going on, what's coming up. Not everybody has email, and so we encourage everybody to come, but even email, you know, you read your email and then you get busy with 10 other things, you know, so it just kind of keeps you up on things and stuff such as that. But just coming together, I think is so great, because anytime, disaster or non-disaster, when you come into the office, you know, the staff, the volunteers there are so good, and you just, everybody feels good, everybody gets together, everybody, you know, feeds off each other as far as the adrenaline and as far as what's going on. And our boss, Philip, he is such a big hearted, and he's so inspirational. And in these meetings and stuff, I mean, he will want you to, you know, he talks of so much inspiration and stuff all the time, and you just walk away feeling good about who you are and that you are a volunteer, and that you're, you know, bottom line, you're going to be ready to help people. There's a synergy that's there that we have with our, blessed with our staff, and especially with the volunteers that we have that keep us going every day. Oh yes, yes, it's wonderful. You know, if you're having a bad day, you can come in there and you'll walk away, you'll feel better. And especially if you do have, and you will at some point in time, have the capability to help people. And when they give you a hug, if it's in your heart and you're in the right place, and you will walk away feeling fantastic that you helped them in probably the worst time of their life if they've lost everything. That's right. Well, one of the worst times for a lot of people that especially lived in the southern part of our country was Katrina. Yes. It's something that kind of sticks in our minds, and one that the images of seeing homes and seeing what happened in New Orleans will be with us forever. Yeah. What role did you play in that particular national disaster? Yes, it was scary. Like I said, it was Katrina happened August 29th, and I was in Jackson, Mississippi 2 days later. And I had retired, of course, and taken a lot of classes and stuff, but never really done a whole lot in depth yet. And the CEO, Melissa Frio, called me and she said, "You ready to go?" And I was like, "Yeah." In 3 weeks, she said, "Okay, you need to be gone for 3 weeks." Okay. And my heart was just going crazy, you know, and it's like, oh my gosh, okay, you know. And I remember flying to Jackson, Mississippi, and even on the plane, you can spot somebody that has Red Cross on or whatever, and you just right away start talking, and you right away you start, you know, getting this adrenaline going, and you know, meeting people and meeting new people, and they're anxious to get going, and you're anxious to get going, and then I got there late that night. The next morning, I checked into headquarters, but then it was so late the next morning I came back, And they were, it was very fresh into this big, huge disaster. And they were saying, who has this training, who has this training? And one of the trainings they were mentioning was sheltering, and I had had it. I had, had extensive training with that. And they said, okay, there was another girl that was kind of standing a little away from me, and they said, okay, you and you, we need a manager at this shelter at its Methodist church. Here's the keys, here's the map to get there, grab your bag, and you're going. And it was like, holy cow, manage a shelter. But we made it there. There was one other lady there that was trying to hold her head above water with 200 and some clients. And we just had a wonderful experience. It was at a Methodist church in Jackson, Mississippi. The church people were fantastic, but tired. I mean, they had tried to run the shelter with one other person, and there was just so many people coming in and out, so many trials of different things of the clients coming in and the different things with that. And we ended up, there were 3 of us that managed the shelter for the next 2 weeks. And it was a wonderful experience. There was so many different, we had a preemie baby that their family came in. They had lost their home. It was mom and dad and grandma and grandpa, and they were staying at the hospital. She had went into labor. The baby was preemie, got out of there, had nowhere to go, and they came in, Had an older couple there that had lost their home, everything, their whole life was gone in Katrina. And just to help them and to, get resources. I mean, that's, what we do. We help them every day. We give them food. We give them shelter. And then, but where do you go from here? And we sit with them. We talk with them one-on-one. What's the next step? And it's a challenge when you're in a place that you're not from. But, the local community there was very good in helping us. So within 2 weeks, we had all 200 people placed in other places or with relatives or, that they walked out of the door feeling good about what their next step was.
Well, the faith-based community has been such a strong partner for the American Red Cross, and during those periods when disasters do happen, and I think when we think of Jackson, Mississippi, and for those that know what the country looks like, Jackson was quite a ways away. When we think of Katrina, I think too many people think about New Orleans. Yeah. And the impact that had on that community, but the impact stretched a whole lot farther than just New Orleans.
Oh yes, they had to come pretty far to get out of the devastation. And if you went about 20-30 miles south of Jackson, you started seeing the trees, cut off, and you started seeing. And then we got 1 day off in that 2 weeks, and that day we had heard the animals down near on the Gulf. There was a lot of animals and they were hungry, and they were, the veterinarian clinics didn't have food and stuff. So we went to the local Walmart and piled our car full of dog food and cat food and everything we could put in the trunk and in the back seat. And we went down to the Gulf. And it was just amazing how the further we got, the more devastation. And when we actually made it to the Gulf itself, it was just devastating. I mean, it's beyond words of how devastated it was. There was cars everywhere. There were semis sitting on sides. There was hotels that were on the water that was half blown away. There was so much devastation. But we did find this veterinarian clinic, and they were just hugging us when we got to the door. They couldn't believe we had made it down there and brought what they needed. So it's a good thing.
Well, I tell you, we look at the number of different volunteers that we have, and I've said this a number of times before, but 95% of all the people that work with the American Red Cross are volunteers. And truly, you are the boots on the ground for us. As staff, we try and help provide the resources you need, but when it comes down to the day-to-day operation, it's people like you, Karen, and your team of volunteers. And this month, in the month of July, we are really making an effort to try and reach out to our communities and let them know about volunteer opportunities and what they can do. And I hope that by you being on here today and by the message we're going to try and get out, that we can provide you with more volunteer resources than what you have.
Oh, I hope so. I dearly hope so. We have wonderful, like I said, staff and volunteers, but we always need more. We always need more, especially in these outlying, like way down in Dent County or these rural areas. they get affected by all of this too, you know, and we want to help more of those people. But even beyond that, so the more volunteers, the better. No matter what you can do, don't ever feel like, well, I really can't do anything, or if you have any kind of a handicap or whatever, no, don't stay away. There's so many different things and so many different jobs, whether you want to sit behind a desk. I didn't want to sit behind a desk anymore. I sat behind it for 32 years, and I wanted to do something that I could get up and go. And I do that, but I still do when it's necessary. I have took the training to sit behind a desk also if I need to. So that's what we encourage our volunteers to do, is to find your niche, and then you will just go way beyond your expectations.
I was amazed at the number of volunteer opportunities that there were when Philip and I sat down and started talking about the number there were. That it's not just about going to fires locally, or it's not just about sheltering, that there are a number of opportunities that are out there. And I would encourage our public, those that are watching today, that there is something that you can do. There's a way that you can become involved and be a volunteer for the American Red Cross. And Karen is a great inspiration for us. And
thank you.
we appreciate all that you do for us, and all that you do in trying to help us train those volunteers to have the impact that they have upon not only our community, but the communities that we have that surround in the 21 counties we have, and then for times when we're called to go beyond that. So,
Yeah.
Karen, thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you.
We sure appreciate it, and I appreciate you being with us.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for joining us on Meet the Red Cross. We'll be back again with you again next month with another one of our board members and another volunteer. And we encourage you that if there's a point in your life where you feel like you want to give back, and that you would like to make a difference in your community, make a difference in someone's life, we invite you to join the Red Cross and stand beside us in helping those people who are facing maybe one of the worst days of their life, and how you can be a positive influence. Thank you for being with us. We'll see you next time.